York Times is reporting today that because of President Donald Trump's proclamations barring immigration interviews for most immigration cases that are not marriages to U.S. citizens, the United States is now facing a backlog of 380,000 cases at U.S. embassies around the entire world. That's not even the number of adjustments being filed here. We're talking about 380,000 people who have completed all of their paperwork, who are ready for their immigrant visa appointments, who are eligible for their immigrant visa appointments because the priority dates are current. They are just waiting to be called in. And now there is a backlog because of the various proclamations due to Trump's anti-immigration stances, as well as COVID, 380,000 people. Now, U.S. consulates, just so you understand, they issue about 500,000 immigrant visas a year. So if we have a backlog of 380,000 people, they are backed up over a year than what they were when this entire thing started. And most of these people, believe it or not, are still family members of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. In April, Trump signed the proclamation suspending almost all legal immigration. Now Biden has pledged to reopen the doors once again, to restart the immigration engine, to get immigrant visa appointments. But the problem is this. They got 380,000 visa applicants backlogged. I would say from my own experience, there's about 2 immigration officers or 2 consular officers doing interviews at any given time. And if you think about it and say, Biden will just have to hire more people to do immigrant visa appointments, it takes 2 years to go through the training process to get certified to be a consular officer. So even if they say, okay, we're going to hire more people, they're not going to be able to get people in there who are qualified for at least 2 years. So it's a huge problem.
The petty in me just automatically thinks about Trump, and this is probably one of the biggest self-gratifying moments for him. Just because he didn't win, he's like, well, I screwed them on this. Now they're behind a whole year. C'est la vie.
You're right. And we said, it's not going to be easy for Biden just to turn back on the faucet. Right. Things that Trump did are going to, like, here's a perfect example, are going to be affecting immigrants for years. Even if there is an amnesty, even if there is a change in immigration laws that speed up processing, you still need people to actually do a process. Now, it's possible there are remedies to fix these issues. You don't have to have an interview. Why do we have to meet every last person that needs an immigrant visa? If on their paperwork, everything looks good, and their background checks, everything looks good, and the immigration officer really doesn't have any question other than for them to show up, stamp a passport, and leave, and ask some general questions, it's possible that in the future, I have no idea, but it's possible in the future, they may say some people aren't even going to get visa appointments. Why? I always found it a little ridiculous why people need a visa appointment. Why do you need to show up and speak to somebody if it's a straightforward case? If there's a case where an immigration officer has to ask you about some offense that occurred before, or some sort of misrepresentation issue that they see, or some other issues that they may believe may prevent you from getting a green card, well then, you have to have an interview. But if there's no issues that look like they would prevent you from getting a green card, why interview in the first place? Just send the person the green card. Your background checks are cleared. And quite frankly, if we've learned anything in the pandemic, we could do everything by Zoom. So as long as the person has a telephone, if you really want to interview them and you want to speed things up, FaceTime them. Say, hi, how are you? I got a few questions for you. Done. All right, we'll send you a green card in the mail.
Right.
Genius, Brad.
Genius.
Genius.
I am not even on that blue ribbon committee. But if somebody knows Jill Biden, tell her to give me a call, because I got some good ideas. Because there's no way that they're going to be able to clear up these backlogs, even if they wanted to, because they can't train the people fast enough. And if you have two consular officers who are working generally in each embassy, you find retired people and bring them back, or you move people around. So, okay, now there's 3 people. You still have hundreds of thousands of people in backlog. Why do you need to go interview a 10-year-old kid? For what purpose? Why does the 10-year-old kid need to show up at the embassy? Why does grandma, who's 75 years old, need to be interviewed for security clearance? I don't think grandma's doing anything at 75. There's certain groups of people they could say, we're not going to interview them.
I think it's so important for people to actually see this. This is why I think the schmoozing with Brad is so important, because I see on a lot of different websites and profiles on Instagram, especially that are catered to the younger crowd, that are really questioning President Biden's, promptness and saying, oh, well, why aren't you doing this faster? Why aren't you doing this faster? And it's like, we have to understand that there's so much that he has to, correct. And like you said, it's going to take a while. So that's why I think it's so important for people to actually see this.
I agree with you, Yo-Yo. Here's another perfect example. Okay, you're talking about the stimulus plan and you're saying, okay, Biden's been there for 2 weeks. Why hasn't it passed yet? Well, the reason, because they want a $1.9 trillion COVID rescue plan. And the problem is that to pass a bill in the Senate, you need 60 senators to pass it. Mm-hmm. But there's only 50 people who are Democrats plus Kamala Harris. So they need 10 more senators. So 10 Republican senators came and said, we'll pass something for $600 billion, but we don't want to pass something for $1.9 trillion. And Joe Biden and Janet Yellen, who's the new Treasury Secretary, they don't even think 1.9 trillion may be enough. They may need to go back again. So they don't want to pass something that's 600 billion. They want to go big or go home, as Joe Biden says. But he needs those other 9 Republicans. So it's not that easy. So what does he have to do if he wants to bypass it? In the Senate rules, you can pass budget resolutions by a 51-50 majority. So if you get all the Democrats plus Kamala to pass the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, and they do it through something called reconciliation, which is to budget money for the United States, they can do it 51-50. But reconciliation, the process of doing it in the Senate, is a slow process that takes weeks to do. So if they want to pass something fast, they need Republicans. If not, they got to go through this reconciliation process, which may take weeks, which ultimately is going to happen. So when you say, well, where's our stimulus checks, Joe Biden? You promised us right from day one. He's doing it from day one. It's just there's a procedure in place in the Senate that doesn't work as fast as we all want it to. Also, what's going on in Congress right now is Donald Trump's impeachment. The House impeachment managers, they filed a brief charging Donald Trump with being singularly responsible for inciting the insurrection last month at the United States Capitol. The filing also underscored how rioters themselves have called Donald Trump as the reason that they attacked Congress. In response, Donald Trump's legal team argued his speech was protected by the First Amendment and that it's unconstitutional to move forward with impeachment since he is no longer in office. Now, this is Trump's second group of attorneys. The first group of attorneys quit, presumably because Donald Trump wanted them to argue that the election was stolen from him. And no attorney wanted to do that because they know it's a lie. An attorney can go in and argue the Constitution. He had a right to free speech and say what he wants. And they also can argue that this is a procedural problem. He's no longer president, so procedurally, not substantively, they're not arguing whether substantively he did something wrong, just procedurally that it's moot because he's no longer the president, and therefore you can't impeach somebody who is no longer the president because there's nothing to impeach. And I'll say 2 things about that, Yo-Yo and Vanessa. Number one, not all free speech is protected free speech. So when we say in the United States of America that we have freedom of speech only goes so far. I'll give you perfect examples that have nothing to do with this. Okay? We don't have freedom of speech for child pornography. Right? So somebody who's a child pornographer, they would argue, well, I have freedom of speech. I can put up a picture and use pictures of child pornography. No, you don't have a right to that. So freedom of speech only goes so far. You don't have a right to slander or libel somebody, to say lies about them publicly. That's also not protected under our First Amendment of free speech. So free speech only goes so far. And in this particular case, you don't have a right to incite an insurrection, and you don't have a freedom of speech to go tell somebody to go break the law. Right. You can't stand on your soapbox and say to everybody, go rob the bank, go rob the bank, go rob the bank. Here's a gun, here's ammunition, this is where you get it. I'm going to tell you how to do it. Go rob the bank. And then say, I didn't do anything wrong. I have freedom of speech. I can tell everyone to go rob a bank. No, you don't have a right to do that. You don't have a right to tell people to break the law and then have them follow you. And you don't have a right to incite an insurrection. So I don't believe, I am an attorney, but I am a layman constitutional expert. Okay? There are lawyers out there who study this for 30 years. I study immigration. So there are lawyers out there who study this for 30 years or 40 years or experts on constitutional law. I don't know every last Supreme Court decision. But from my layman attorney's perspective, he doesn't have a right to incite a riot. That's not freedom of speech. And number two, the Constitution, from what I understand, says that the head of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, has to preside over an impeachment of a president or vice president. But it doesn't say you can't impeach anybody. It just says that the Supreme Court should preside over and head the impeachment process of impeaching a sitting president or sitting vice president. But it's silent, absolutely silent on whether you can impeach somebody who is already out of office. And why would you want to do that is because if you do impeach them, you have the ability to prevent them from running for office again if they've done something so terrible. So there is a penalty for the impeachment. It is not a moot thing. So the briefs are a preview. That's what the arguments are. I've given you basically both sides. That's what the arguments are, and it's a preview of all of the issues that are going to be in Donald Trump's impeachment starting next week.
Wow.
Do you care that Jeff Bezos is stepping down as CEO of Amazon?
I'm a little.
Is that like a? I don't know if that's like we should care. Should we talk about it? Should we? Would it? I'm kind of on the fence on that one.
I mean, I don't think we have to spend too much time, but I do want to get your opinion on why you think, because it's a little sketch. You know, I know that he's a billionaire, and like people are, well, what I said like was, you know, he's a billionaire. He's not going to work all his life, but even billionaires want to continue to make money. So like stepping down as CEO instead of like staying as CEO and just hiring people to do his job while he's just, you know, sitting down. Like, I don't know. It's just, I'm side-eyeing it. Why do you think he did it?
I think it's actually all ego, in the sense that he's not really giving up a lot of income because he still owns the stock in the company. So as the stock goes up, he's going to be making a lot of money. And he's putting his right-hand man to run Amazon, who's been with him for 30 years. So he trusts the guy who's going to run it. And he says to himself, you know what? I got $90 billion or $150 billion or $5 gazillion. I don't even know what he's worth. And you want to know what? And I have an ego. So you know what I want to do? I want to put a man on Mars. And I want to make these huge donations all over the world so I can say I'm a great philanthropist. So I want to spend my time building up my ego. I already have built up my ego as much as I can by building the world's largest company. It doesn't do anything for me anymore. That's my opinion. What do you think? What do you think, Vanessa?
This is still fresh. This is still fresh news. It caught me off guard a little bit, but I can also see how that, like, it's his, like, I get, now that I hear you mention the ego thing, because that did not cross my mind for a second.
Yeah.
But it's like he invented, let's say, or he created like maybe one of the greatest things of all time. And sure, now that you mentioned the ego thing, it's like, okay, did that, you know, let me just sit back here, but I'm obviously still going to be making my end, you know? So I guess it might be an ego thing.
Like I told you guys, I've been watching this show called Billions, and it's about a billionaire who works in like stock, and he has this huge company, and it's all just like games that they play with each other. They're like a bunch of billionaires that screw each other over and do acts like this, just like random acts like this to either psych out the public or whatever. So I always think that there's something in between the lines, that we're not reading. I always think that there's something you got to side eye. So I don't know. I just don't know what it is.
Always suspicious, Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo
Always,
is
Yeah.
always suspicious.
He always feels
You know
there's
me.
always something trifling happening.
exactly.
There's never just
Always
be happening.
something trifling.
Yeah, you know that emoji guy with like the little glass and he's looking up?
Oh, that's Yo-Yo.
That's
Oh,
Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo's the emoji guy with the little glass looking up and go,
This goes deeper.
let me think about this a little more, right?
That's me all the way.
That's a good emoji. That was a good one, Brad.
I use that stays in the history of the emojis I use.
Is it?
all
Is
the
it
time.
always? Yeah, that's very funny. I can imagine that.
So funny.
Now, according to statistics from the Johns Hopkins University, there are now over 104 million coronavirus cases worldwide. More than 2.25 million people have died. 57.5 million people have recovered. In the United States, we have a death toll now of 448,000 people, approximating close to 50,000 more deaths from COVID this year than all of World War II. About 70 to 85% of the United States population needs to be fully vaccinated for this to be over. So far, we stand at 2%.
Oh, man.
The Biden administration said it's going to begin direct shipments of coronavirus vaccines to retail pharmacies next week. So Americans will be able to go to their Walmart, their Duane Reade, their Rite Aids to start getting COVID vaccines if the governors open it up to people who are under 65 or who are not first responders. Now, half the states have begun allowing teachers to be vaccinated. By this week, 24 states and Washington, D.C. were providing shots to teachers of kindergarten through high school students. That's a smart thing to do, because if we can get teachers vaccinated, we can get kids back in school. In Canada, makers of the two vaccines authorized there have slowed down shipments due to manufacturing delays and demands from Europe, leaving Canada with a severe vaccine shortage. As a matter of fact, I've been reading articles that wealthy Canadians are flying to America and trying to connive their way into getting vaccine shots because there's just none in Canada. Now, in the UK, researchers have found that the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine significantly slows down the transmission of the virus. This is the first time it's actually been proven scientific that if you take a vaccine, you're going to slow down the transmission of a virus. We only knew up until this day that if you take a vaccine, it will prevent you from getting coronavirus, but we didn't know, scientifically proven at least, whether even though you don't get coronavirus, you can still carry it and give it to somebody else. And it makes logical sense that if you have the vaccine, that you would slow down the transmission by giving it to other people, as well as preventing yourself from getting it. It has now been proven scientifically true. So people who at least take the AstraZeneca vaccine, it hasn't been proven for the other ones, but we're going to presume it will also prove that as well, that if you do get the vaccine, that you are less likely, I don't know to what extent, but less likely to give COVID to somebody else. Makes sense.
Got you.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah. I didn't know that you could still contract it and pass it with the vaccine, but like you just won't get the actual like symptoms, right? Is that what it is?
Well, you know, what the vaccine does is it prevents the virus from infecting your cells from and then showing symptoms of COVID and getting sick. That doesn't mean the virus isn't swirling around your body. It just means it's not attaching to whatever it needs to attach to in your body to start the actual sickness. So what this scientific study has shown is that even if the virus is circulating around your body, I don't know, you know, I'm being very, very vague on because I'm not a scientist, but assuming that the vaccine, you come into contact with the you come into contact with the virus, you have the vaccine, it's circulating through your body because the virus will still go up your nose. It's not like all of a sudden you have you have
a block.
block on your nose. It's not like you have cotton up your nose and it doesn't go up your nose. The virus is entering your body somehow, but it's not attaching to anything that makes you sick. That's what these vaccines do. It prevents the virus from attacking you. It's still in your body. And what we've now scientifically determined, at least through the AstraZeneca, is that it also will prevent you from giving this virus to other people, transmitting it.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Which is all we really want.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I didn't know that, like I'm just worried about, getting the vaccine and then finally going to see, my older family and not knowing that I have it and, still accidentally, transferring it to them if I did have it. So that's good to know that at least it slows that transmission down.
And by the way, I don't know if you saw this in the news, Yo-Yo and Vanessa. There is a female black scientist, and she is at the forefront of the COVID-19 vaccine development. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading infectious disease expert, credited Kizzmekia Corbett during a webinar for her work, saying the vaccine you are going to be taking in the United States was developed by an African-American woman, and that is a fact. Corbett said, to be honest, I didn't realize the level of impact that my visibility might have. I do my work because I love my work. She says that one opportunity in her life made a key difference. She attended the University of Maryland, Baltimore as a Meyerhoff Scholar, an aggressive program that mentors minorities and women in science. Graduates of the program include Surgeon General Jerome Adams. Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so I was brought to my attention. I didn't know that. Here they are. It's Hump Day. That's right. 100 people gathered in a warehouse orgy last month in Paris because it broke coronavirus rules. Officers raided the orgy in Collegien, a Paris suburb, on Friday night following reports of men and women meeting for the so-called libertine party. A curfew aimed at stopping the spread of COVID is currently in effect across France. The people believed to be organizers were arrested soon after 9 o'clock, and up to 100 people were fined for non-compliance with regulations.
That's trifling.
Trifling.
Yeah, what?
I mean, this is what's in our news today.
Yes.
Well, it's Hump Day.
It's Hump Day. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Poor, the poor people, at least break it up after it's done. They're already together, right? They've already been together. Let them do their thing and then break it up in the morning. Let them have fun at least, right?
At least.
Why, get everybody all excited, 9 o'clock.
They're all riled up.
They're all wound up and ready to go, and it's 9 o'clock, and you're like, damn, the police showed up already.
Damn. That's funny.
The famed Hollywood sign that overlooks Hollywood briefly read Holly Boob on Monday, and now we know why. Social media influencer Julia Rose says she changed the sign to protest what she sees as censorship of racier content by Instagram. Police arrested Rose and 5 others for trespassing, and park rangers quickly restored the iconic sign to its usual status. Holly Boob. Captain, I don't know. Let's find out. Captain Steve Lurie, commanding officer of the LAPD Hollywood area, tweeted Monday, "This was way uncool." That's all he had to say, which is way uncool.
Actually, it is kind of cool.
You think it's cool or uncool?
It's cool.
Vanessa?
For a reason.
That's one heck of a hike. I don't know if any. Well, Yo-Yo, that's your city, but
yeah, that's
one heck of a hike. For someone to get up there and move that is crazy.
Now, in an interview with the Los Angeles Times on Tuesday, Rose said she first came up with the Holly Boob idea last year after Instagram warned her about nudity on her personal and company accounts. What do you think about that nudity on Instagram?
What about it?
I don't know. Yes, no, maybe. Positive,
There's
negative.
too much access. There's too many kids there. Not a thing. Yeah. I like the way the restrictions are right now.
I mean, I feel like, it's a woman's choice. If she wants to show her body and twerk naked, as long as you put sensitive content, I think it's okay.
I don't know, because there's a lot of kids on Instagram, so there has to be a way to police it. As long as you can police it and, verify you're overage and you realize that you're going to a post or a Instagram influencer that may not have their clothes on, why not?
I think
Right?
I think
Why not?
the way you could police it is if this is just coming off the dome. If you have to show license in order to say you're 18 and over. So like if you don't show license, then they're just going to, assume that you were a child.
Right.
And that's when you can't, access this content because that's more policing than on the internet, because if a child has a phone, they could easily just go to Pornhub and say, yes, I'm an adult. But this is also a way. This is also a way for people to make money, just like OnlyFans. Like they have like their Cash App on the bottom. They twerk on live, and that's how they're making their living. So why stop?
Or there's badges now. They can get badges or stars, like we saw on Facebook.
That's
what I'm saying.
You know what? I would say Instagram would make money from this. So I don't know why they wouldn't do that. All right. Meanwhile, we have to go to the UK. Because a husband in the United Kingdom, check this one out. This is kind of funny. A husband in the United Kingdom has gone viral after giving his wife of 14 years an end-of-the-year annual review. Chris Stars took full-time stay-at-home mom Sophie out for a pub lunch where he presented her with a 2-page document grading her performance in their marriage as if he was an employer. The report included grades for 18 aspects of their home life, including her bedroom performance. Among his comments, Chris poked fun at his wife's unwillingness to accept criticism and her conflict resolution skills. The father of 5 wrapped up his jaw-dropping review with a performance improvement plan. Well, that's not so funny. I think this is rude. Sophie has since joked that her partner was wise to do the review in public. She continued to say that she was flattered to see that she's been graded excellent on certain topics. Chris did not go into too much detail about the review, but did reveal he was very complimentary to his wife's skills in bed. I say I give Chris an F as a husband. What do you think? He gets an F.
I agreed. Yeah. What?
Well, that's the no-go.
Yeah, I give him an F. I give him an F for being rude to his wife. I give him an F for doing this publicly. I give him and I give him an F for not talking with his wife and having a discussion about things that she can improve on and not making this a business transaction.
That's disgusting.
Disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah.
I thought it was funnier when I was about to read it because I don't see these beforehand.
And then
it went right down. For just $5, the San Antonio Zoo is going to name a cockroach after your former significant other and feed it to a bird, reptile, or mammal for Cry Me a Cockroach for Valentine's Day. So you want to get back at your ex? Name a cockroach at the San Antonio Zoo, and that cockroach is going to get eaten.
I absolutely love this idea.
$20 to have a cockroach named after your ex and have them eat it at the San Antonio Zoo.
That's all it was worth. I mean, that's all they're worth.
I'm sure you'll get some kind of gratification out of watching a roach with your ex's name getting eaten.
Now, jilted lovers have until February 13th at 6 p.m. to register on the zoo's website. The money raised, it's $20. The money raised from the Cry Me a Cockroach event will go towards expanding the zoo's jaguar habitat. Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.